No, it's nice.
Yeah.
Don't get too used to it.
All right, so if you guys mind, you can turn your microphones on.
Thank you all for being here. It's beautiful today. The City Plan Commission is joined on today at 4:48, October 18th, 2000.
We're starting the meeting, so
And
please start the meeting.
let's adjourn and move it on. Increase the volume. Yeah. Well, I've been asked to repeat that today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. It's 4:48, and City Plan Commission is joined to hear some referrals primarily. And I'd like to just start with a call. That's the call to order. Let's do a roll call. Miguel?
Miguel Quesada.
Noel Sanchez.
Christian Potter.
Rob Hayes, our staff.
Harry Bilodeau?
Cheyenne Mandrakar, DPD staff.
Thank you, guys. Is there a director's report?
Nothing for this evening.
Excellent. So we will start with City Council referral number 3528, 241 Reservoir Avenue. And if you'd like to give a brief introduction, Choyan, it'd be great.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. This is a request to rezone the subject property from C1 to C2. It is a commercial building with multiple units that's in the C1 zone on Reservoir Ave. And the applicant is petitioning to rezone this to C2. And the applicant's here and they can tell us more.
Thank
Good.
you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Kelly Morris Salvatore for the applicant. And I have with me Sophia Yin, who is the principal of Asian Properties. First of all, thanks for meeting. I know you have a lot of zone changes to cover in the next month or so, so I appreciate the special meeting. I think Choyan did a good job of explaining the request. This is an area that has, similar uses along the area. And in this specific building, there's 2 retail uses on either end. They want to put another retail use in the middle. So it's consistent with the area, obviously consistent with the comprehensive plan. If you have any specific questions of Ms. Yin, we're happy to answer those. But I think that this is pretty straightforward. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
My understanding is that this area is already zoned C1. Why are you asking for C2?
So do you want me to answer that for you? Yes. So they intend to put a liquor store in the middle unit. I think Ms. Yin has told me that she has access to a B license. So C1 does not allow for a liquor store, but C2 would allow for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, do any of the commissioners have any comments before we go to the staff report? No? Good. Let's just get the staff report, Bob. Choyan again.
Thanks. And commissioners, if you were to take a look at this area, you would see that there are a number of different commercial uses in the vicinity of the property, and the property being commercial too. So this is in conformance with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, which intends for neighborhood commercial in this area. And given the design and massing of the building, we feel that C2 would be appropriate. So based on that, we would recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the city council to approve the change.
There's an elementary school a couple blocks away. Does that have any bearing on the liquor store?
I believe that would be with the, I believe that would have to do with the licensing, and I'm not sure if that's something that we would weigh in on.
So yeah, that certainly is a licensing issue. I do know that there are some rules around whether someone can get a liquor license within proximity to a school.
That's correct. I believe it's 500 feet. Frankly, I'm not, are you with outside of that 500 feet, do you know?
Harder than that.
Yeah, farther than 500 feet. So that would not affect this particular license application. If it does, then either we wouldn't have a license, we wouldn't be able to go for that use, we'd go for some other use, or we could ask for special legislation from the General Assembly. But there are other alternatives, but I believe this is outside of those, the 500 feet.
It is. Liquor Basket starts great. Liquor Basket is a famous, like they sponsor Little League team, so for years and years, West Elmwood had Liquor Basket, so they're not far from here. So it's not any farther than the still would be from that. I think it's close to that. So I can't imagine this, but that being a problem.
So that involves, that 500 feet involves both bars and liquor stores, or just bars?
No, just liquor stores, actually, believe it or not.
Well, thank you all. Do we have any public, any members of the public who want to comment on this?
No one in the room, and I'm not seeing any hands raised online.
No. All right, I think this is pretty straightforward, but the next step is deliberation. Gentlemen,
Staff, do you want to do the staff report?
yes, please, yeah, thank you.
I read it out.
Oh, you did, I'm
You
sorry.
did,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think deliberation time is here.
Like you said, it's pretty straightforward. So per the staff report and conversation today, I move that we recommend to the city council for approval of the zone change.
Thank you, Miguel. Do we have a second here?
Second.
Excellent. So let's just all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That's approved. Well done, Kelly. Okay, now let's move along to another city council referral. This is number 3529-472, 480 and 483 Douglas Avenue, Shamrock Partners, John O'Rourke.
And again, Commissioners, a quick introduction. This is a request to rezone the subject properties from R3 to C2. And they are 3 properties that are used for different uses and a former auto service business, a bar, and a vacant industrial building. And given that these buildings are commercial in nature, but located in the R3 zone, the applicant is requesting that they be rezoned to C2 so that they would be considered conforming. And yes, they can take it over from there.
Mr. Chairman, again, Kelly Morris Salvatore for the applicant. I have with me tonight John O'Rourke, who is one of the members of Shamrock Partners, and Kingdom Capital is actually owned by a business partner of his across the street, who he's in Ireland right now, but Mr. O'Rourke knows the business very well. You may know that they currently operate what's called Old Irish Social Club. It is a social club that is limited to essentially PC students. That limits it even more to like September through November, and then again, January through May. They bought the auto body shop right next door to expand because it is a very small area for occupancy. And then across the street, there's another very large industrial looking building that they currently have an outside entertainment area. You know, during COVID, they kind of had the take it outside type of bar slash, it's not really a restaurant, but you know, bar slash beer garden. Thank you, Jeff. And in the building itself, the intention is to separate out the building as needed to house uses that are allowed in that C2 zoning district. And with the discussion with the planning staff, we thought that C2 would probably be the best zone based on this street and the mix of uses along this street. The closest commercial zones on either side are C2 in some, approximation to this area. So if you want any more detail on the uses, Mr. O'Rourke can certainly get into it more. But again, we have the positive recommendation from staff, and it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, you all have any comments or opinions on this? Commissioners?
I guess this is one of those questions, like, why was it zoned R3? It's one of those.
That's a good question. And, it's a good example of how the zoning that's established in the city is sometimes just a rough approximation of what's there. These buildings are obviously pretty old, probably, early to mid 20th century. It would have been common for uses to be established by variance or for areas to be zoned commercial, but then be down zoned in the hope that maybe those uses go away. From our perspective, Douglas Avenue is more or less a commercial corridor for its entire length. It does have some residential uses. It has some pockets of areas that are just residential, but for the most part, it's a major artery in that northwest part of the city. And when things like this come up, we feel that it's best to try to get the zoning aligned with the building typology and the uses.
I'd like to see the map. Like where is the closest?
So here, so the subject lots are right here. The where this little dot is, there are a couple of lots that encompass where the bar is and the former auto shop, and then across the street, this hatched area indicates historic district. That's where that other commercial building is. So you've got commercial pockets at Eaton Street here to the south, and then what you might we sometimes call Eagle Park, I guess, to the north here. So this is sort of smack in the middle of that, and it's consistent with some areas along Douglas and Admiral where you have sort of small pockets of commercial. That would be just another one that would certainly be typical of the way we do zoning. You see, similarly on Smith Street and areas like that.
It's just that area there, and just that little stretch, almost all the way up to that where the C2 ends. I mean, I think the next block over is another lot with a building. I think there was a car lot there before, and then the building behind it is a couple of doors down. There's a lawyer's office, and so there's a stretch there that is pretty. There aren't houses, right? If you keep going over there to the right, there's another commercial property here.
Yeah.
And then there's a few houses, and then there's a restaurant.
Right.
And just like it doesn't seem like there's a ton of this is not even the building that you're talking about here, right?
No.
So this is
that was an ambulance place for years and years. And the Universal Ambulance was there.
It's
Universal Ambulance was there for years and years and years. That what you're looking at over there.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I know one time, and it was by request that we just kind of like rezoned the entire area.
That was on Douglas too, I believe, right?
No, that was your neighbors. That was, one time we did the.
Oh, you don't so yeah.
Yeah.
No, but there was one that we did a street too, where there was one lot that came up. I think wasn't it Douglas?
Charles.
Oh, Charles.
Yes.
And then we said, bring all this out.
Your recommendation was to expand it. And we often feel this way that, you know, when something like this comes up, maybe it's an opportunity to sort of look at a larger area. There is a bit of downside to petitioners in this case, because when this ultimately goes to the council to have a public hearing, that's when notice goes out to abutters, and the larger the area, the more abutters get noticed and the less sort of, I guess, predictability you might find. We're gonna see that with maybe the next one as well, where we were suggesting maybe it should be a larger area, but the petitioner said, no, we want to keep it tight because we want it to apply to us. But I do think that, you know, as we look at the comprehensive plan, we will be looking at corridors like this, having seen these sorts of petitions. So I think over time, we might try to do some larger scale rezoning.
Yeah, this would be nice, like, just all of these buildings, I've been driving by this every day for years now. It would be nice to see some development, because I've always, it looks like it used to be like kind of the center of a neighborhood, and
Yeah, it's a little commercial node.
So are the uses of those buildings grandfathered in?
So I think part of this is that the Old Irish Social Club is grandfathered in, but as a lodge, or I think we call it lodge or meeting house, which is not, we wouldn't allow it to expand. So the rezoning would allow for a bar as of right, and then they would be able to expand it into the other commercial building. Then across the street, I don't know that there are any uses that are actually legally established there currently. They've been doing this, the beer garden and the open space here. I would say that was informally permitted as a accommodation for COVID, pursuant to some legislation that passed at the state level. But going forward, this really should be in a commercial zone to allow them the flexibility to reuse that building.
Well, you planning to reuse the building or knock everything down?
What's that?
Are you planning on using the big building?
Um,
Because I can speak to that with Jeremiah.
yeah.
So Jeremiah, what's his last name? Nash, sorry. He tells me that he will subdivide that out into for whatever people need. He doesn't have any specific clients in mind, but we looked at the use table, and the types of uses in a C2 zone are the types of tenants that he would think would use that building. So, but it will be utilized, and it's obviously regulated by the Historic District Commission as well.
Excellent. The HDC comes to the rescue. Okay. Well, I guess we've had the deliberations.
Testimony, right?
Yeah.
No
Well,
public testimony.
we've had Q&A from the commission, and usually we move on to staff report this time.
Okay.
And commissioners, we've discussed what has been included in our staff report, which is based on our analysis. This is an area that, though zone residential, has a number of commercial uses. And this tracks with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, where you see this area is intended for neighborhood commercial in proximity to medium density residential development. So based on that, we feel that the rezoning, should it go through, would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And we don't foresee a negative, and we feel it would be consistent with the purposes of zoning. And based on that, we would recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the city council to approve the zone change.
Okay, thank you, Troyan. Again, I guess, is there any public comment on the screen or present? Well,
Not seeing anybody.
I was going to say, seeing none, we will just move on. The commissioners, what do you think? Chris?
Can I make a motion, or you guys wanna talk?
Yeah, sure.
I say we move to recommend to the city council approval of zone change.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Miguel. Okay, let's just have a vote, and we'll start with Miguel.
Aye.
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 And I said vote aye, so it is approved. Congratulations again, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, third referral for the night is referral number 3530, 154 and 164 Delaine Street. Petitioner is YWCA. Again, if you'd like to give us a little intro, Troyan. it'd be great.
Sure, Mr. Chair, this is a request to rezone 2 lots from R3 to MMU 75. These 2 lots are the only lots that are zoned R3 in an area that's predominantly zoned MMU 75 and C2. They're occupied by 2 multifamily dwellings, and the applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for their renovation and possible expansion. And I believe the applicant's representation will be joining us virtually. They can tell us more.
Mr. Chairman,
John?
can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm getting a little feedback over here.
We can hear you fine.
Okay.
you look great.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This development is part of YWCA's traditional housing program for veterans. There is existing housing here that is used for that purposes. This is a total renovation of both of those units there in order to provide traditional housing programs for veterans, a very worthwhile program. In reviewing it, what's there and what is proposed, because it's significant and substantial renovations, the R3 zone was not an appropriate zone for the renovations. And therefore, the thought was that the MU 75 zone, which is contiguous to this property and adjacent to the Paragon Mills, which is being developed for housing, would be appropriate. So this is an exciting program in that it's going to make substantial renovations. One of the buildings will have 15 units. The other unit will have 35 units, and it will provide a much more better environment for these veterans who we're trying to assist in this program. So a very worthwhile program. The city is assisting in financing some of the project. It's a very, very worthwhile program, and it's entirely appropriate with the multifamily dwelling units right adjacent to it. Happy to answer any questions with respect to this proposal.
John, can you explain how, what's happening in these buildings now and how they were legally permitted?
So I'm looking at the uses. So essentially they had, I think it's a non-conforming situation in that there were single beds in one room and two, I'm looking first floor residence room, director's offices. So they were a non-conforming situation, I believe, for this type of a use. They have a food bank, available food storage. So it was a community type of a place that had these types of residents. And that were allowed to continue as a result of their non-conforming status. I'm looking at the at one the 32 facility, the current configuration. First floor has a 2-bedroom unit, a residence bathroom, kitchen, casework offices, meeting rooms, and those types of things. Single beds, no bunks. And the room 2 has a single bed. So it's those types of things that has been there and has been allowed to continue within the R3 use. That now there's more of a apartment style development, which will be the proposed configuration in the 35-bed unit will have 9 bedroom units with baths and common area on the first floor, 10 single-bedroom units with baths and common area on the second floor, 10 single-bedroom units with bath and common area on the third floor, and the fourth floor will have 6 single bedrooms with baths and common area. So it's significantly different, a significant upgrade from the prior use, which was allowed to be there, I believe, because it's been a non-conforming use of this type of a use. But because now of the substantial renovations and the apartment style uses, the MMU 75 is entirely appropriate.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a couple more questions.
Sure.
John, so I just want to make sure that this is going to work for you, because are you saying that what's proposed is multifamily residential in the sense that each of these units is going to have a kitchen, or is it group quarters where you have sort of rooming units with shared kitchen and facilities like that?
Yeah, Bob, you're correct. The latter is the case. So they're not going to have kitchens within them. It's more of a group quarter situation. As I'm looking at the proposed uses in front of me here.
Because the one thing to consider is that group quarters is a special use permit in the MMU zone.
Okay.
But it's permitted by right in the C2 zone. The only thing is that in the C2 zone, you have certain dimensional standards regarding the siting of buildings and so forth. And I don't know if like if you're proposing to just renovate these buildings as, you know, in their footprint, or if you're going to add on to them. I think from our perspective, we want to help you get the best zoning that
Right.
that doesn't, you know, create more complication for you. One thing that we could potentially do, I put it to the commission members, is that if we need to do this, and honestly, this is a zoning analysis that we probably should have been a little more diligent about before we went into this, or maybe there's something I'm forgetting about the discussions that we had. But
So can I suggest this? The CEO of the YWCA, I believe, is on the line, and maybe could give us the more direct input with respect to, there'll be no increase in the footprint. So maybe, Trayon, I don't know, well, Bob, if Deborah is on, that could be admitted.
let me see if I can. No, I have a phone number, which I think is someone we're very familiar with, and then Christine West.
Yeah, Christine could I'd have Deborah, I'm not sure Christine could comment at this point, but yeah,
Is that something you want to do, John, given that Christine, would she be allowed to testify in front of this board right now?
I'm not sure she would be. So maybe I could have a recess for a minute to have a conversation with my client. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person. I have another commitment that I need to be available for. So can I take a minute?
Can I just suggest something and maybe throw this out to the board? This property is adjacent to the C2 zone, and it's also adjacent to the MMU zone. I think, you know, one of those zones is probably going to be better for you than the other. One of them might, you know, create a little bit more process for you. But, you know, there's the potential that we could just say the recommendation to the council should be one or the other, the one that perhaps results in the best zoning for this particular type of development. I don't know if the commission would be willing to give us that sort of latitude. But I wouldn't want them to say MMU and then still have to go back to the zoning board.
Yeah, Bob, that would be terrific if we could do that. I thought that we had in discussions with the zoning people had confirmed that this was the best zone.
I got the impression that one of these was,
and we want it to be by right or whatever.
John, you're kind of breaking up a little bit, but I got the impression that one of these was a better fit for apartments, a better fit for multifamily dwelling, and the other one was a better fit for group quarters. But again, my memory's not that good on this.
Yeah, so if the recommendation can be the appropriate zone for what's proposed, and I don't mean that facetiously, but it seems like it's a use that's favored, then we'll take a look at it and make the amendment before the public hearing at the city council.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I wouldn't, in my opinion, it wouldn't be prudent to give, one or the other type of recommendations, based on a project, especially when we haven't gotten the full project of what it is. Because, excuse me, John, but at first I thought you were talking about individual apartments moving from a rooming situation to apartments, and then it looks like it might not be because it's going to be shared facilities. So I think it's best to have the full proposal and make the appropriate recommendation versus making one or the other type of recommendations.
Right, yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Is there, how much time does he need to reconsider this?
Yeah, I mean, we could, if you want, we could take we could move on to I know John's got this item and then the one after it. If we wanted to kind of pause on this, give him an opportunity to consult with his for a few minutes, and then we could come back if he's got better information.
That would be appreciated. Thank you. That would be appreciated.
How much time do you need, John? How much?
Well, I'd say, I noticed I do have the Broadway one. So if you could go to the last one and give us 10 minutes to have a discussion about it and then come back, that would be appreciated.
I'd like to do that. You want to make a motion to give him a recess or?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that you did.
Should go out of order.
Okay.
We could just move on to item 5. But John, what I'm going to ask you to do, you and your client need to look at the use table for group quarters and multifamily dwelling. And you also need to look at the dimensional regulations. If you're not changing footprints or anything like that, if you're just building out, then this probably won't be a big issue if it goes to C2. If you are, then you might have some non-conforming issues, but maybe see where you can get in the next few minutes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to send John back into the audience, and then we can take up
Number 5.
number 5.
Okay, the number 5, City Council referral, 3532, 722, and 730 Douglas Ave. So let's start with an introduction on that.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is a request to rezone the 2 subject lots from R2 to C1. And as we saw before, this is an area of Douglas Ave where you have the residential zone in proximity to the commercial zone, which is adjacent to these subject lots. And the applicant is requesting the rezoning in order to build a mixed-use development on the subject lots with residential on the upper stories and commercial on the ground floor. and the applicants can tell us more about the project. And we should point out that there is a conceptual design in front of you that you can look at to get an idea of what's being proposed.
Okay, so,
Hello, how you doing? My name is Jabril.
hi, Gabriel.
Hi, how are you, sir? Yeah, so basically, we do have a C1 that's already on the same property, which I do own on the other side of, that will be 702. And that's what you're currently looking at right now.
So you own this lot?
Yes.
And this lot?
Yes,
And then these are the two that you're seeking to rezone.
yes, sir.
You want to describe what's happening in this and what you're proposing for both of these two lots?
All right, so I currently I own a auto mechanic shop right there. So I have those two lots empty, we're just using for parking, but it's really not, we don't have to use it for that. There's another lot that's empty, which is right next to it. So I think we sent a drawing down, right? So we sent a drawing down, we're thinking of doing a storefront with a couple of apartments right on top of it.
So I've spoken to them about this design. This is not a design that would come in front of you because it's got 3 dwelling units plus a small commercial space. It wouldn't trigger land development project review, but I wanted them to at least give you an idea of what they're proposing here. What they're showing would not conform with all the dimensional regulations of the C2 zone because it's not built to the street, and the way the parking is configured wouldn't conform. But I think I've already communicated that, and what they have told me is that their intention would be, if this zoning passes, to reconfigure the site plan so that the building does conform with the regulations and that they wouldn't be seeking any variances. So I felt like, that should be helpful for you to at least understand their general intentions for the site.
So what exactly?
Is this the conceptual design that we have here?
Yes.
So because you said it's next door, this is across the street, right?
This,
So 13?
I think the address on that is wrong.
Okay.
It should say 730, Douglas. I think it says 713,
Right.
which is not correct.
It wasn't typo, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the corner.
Yep. So what we would want to see, because if this becomes a commercial zone, we would want to see a building relatively close to the street, occupying most of the frontage along Douglas Avenue with parking to the rear. And I think they could certainly accommodate that on this size of lot, and they would be allowed to build mixed use with commercial and residential.
There's some 4-bedroom apartments here. For housing for families, that's my preference.
Yeah.
It's nice to see something without 1 bedroom.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. So what exactly are we deciding?
So this is a recommendation to the city council on changing the zoning district, because right now, these 2 lots are in the 3-family residential zone. And in order to build a mixed-use building like this, they are requesting that this C1 zone just be pulled over to the corner.
Yes. And is that second lot not conforming? Is it 3,500 square feet or 25?
It's it looks like it's 3,500. It's
Doesn't have frontage, so.
it does have frontage.
You know,
Yeah, well, it's not as wide as would be required for a new lot, but It is, it's arguably buildable. I don't know, do you have a sense of what you would want to do with this?
We want to make that to complement the parkings for the auto garage.
So you would use this for parking?
Yeah.
Would you merge it with this lot?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they own all the lots, but they would have to merge it to use it for parking.
So this would not, what's happening right here is actually not legal because it's principal use parking in the 3-family zone. So they could get a special use permit to use that to keep that lot on its own. Or if they merge the lots together, then it becomes accessory use and they would be allowed to do that. I would suggest that they should merge actually all 3 of these lots together because they have a lot line currently running through the middle of this building. And I don't know if there's any fire separation there now. There should be.
Yes.
So
There is, okay.
So they could keep it that way, or they could just, they could merge all 3, or they could just merge these 2, and that would legitimize accessory parking.
Yeah, so I'm, just thinking that if they're, to change the zone, make it all the same zoning, then the lot and the second lot or the smaller lot. Well, it just, something should
Could
be
we
done.
recommend that?
What's that?
Could we recommend the zone change and the merging of the 2 lots?
So what you could say something along the line of, if the intention is to use lot 722 Douglas for accessory parking, that they merge 718 and 722 together.
Can we say so move right now?
You could.
I'm just trying to, something doesn't seem to get, don't want them to get stuck with something they can't use. And I mean, you all think about this a lot more than I do, but if they merge the lots, can they be unmerged?
Sure, yeah, if this is in a commercial zone, they could come to you with an administrative subdivision. They could always introduce a new lot line. We don't have minimum lot sizes or frontage in commercial zones. So they could reconfigure this in any way they want.
So the zoning change gives them the palette.
Yeah, there were still things they would have. They would
Go
have.
to work.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But it'll be best to just make it right now if you could, right? So that question is either we merge the 3 lots or have 2 separate lots, right? Where the parking area would go to one or the other.
There's 4 right now.
You have 4, yeah. So there were 4 lots, and let me just. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lots. This right here is sort of the oddball. In order for this to be used for parking, it would have to be merged. There could be any number of mergers. It could be merged with lot 31. It could be merged with lot 521. All 3 of these, even all 4 of these lots could be merged together. You could still build a multifamily on this if it was merged, because you can have more than one building in commercial zone on the same lot. So, I don't know that it needs to be part of your recommendation. It would just be necessary for them to be able to utilize this, that there would have to be some further step. And it could be any number of things.
But just to make it compliant, we probably should, because right now it's being used as parking.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, if you want to condition your recommendation on them either removing the vehicles from lot 30 or merging lot 30 with an adjacent lot such that the parking becomes accessory, you could certainly do that.
You guys get what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm following. I'm
Yeah,
following.
so basically that, because that lot is by itself.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
can't have the cars on there by itself.
Even though I own the property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the way it's zoned, you can't
Okay.
have a standalone parking
Okay.
lot. So just imagine like you just bought the house across the street, knocked down, want to put a parking lot with no, and no business attached to it. You can't do that in this area. So
Okay.
right now, from zoning perspective, that's considered a parking lot, even though you're using it for the business.
Yeah.
If we merge that lot with the
Business.
the business lot, then everything's legit.
Okay.
So we're saying right now, why we have this in front of us, should we just recommend that you guys merge the lots and then you don't have to change anything. It's just gonna merge the two lots.
Can I say something? Is it possible we merge it with lot 31 so that we can have a good frontage
Yes.
for the mixed use?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll prefer that to have it merged with us so that we can have the frontage for the mixed use.
You can reconfigure these lots in any way you want, so long as you don't have a lot on its own that has nothing to parking on.
So I guess the recommendation would be zone change and condition that you guys make a decision about how to merge.
Yeah.
And we don't say specifically how to merge it.
That's right.
Thank you.
And you'll come to us with any reconfiguration of lots, you come to us with that. Okay.
Sure.
So moved.
Testimony.
Yeah, I would like to just ask for public comment. I don't see mobs, hundreds of people, but we want to give them a chance, give it a
Not
chance.
seeing anybody online,
No.
their hand raised and no one in the room.
Right. No,
And commissioners, like we saw in the previous case on Douglas Ave, this is an area that's zone residential, but does have a pocket of commercial in proximity. And we find that should the rezoning be approved, it would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan, given that it corresponds to the land uses of land use designations of low density residential and neighborhood commercial. So based on that, we would recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the city council to approve the zone change, subject to the condition that we recommend that the applicant either remove the vehicles from the lot where they're currently parked or merge the lot with an adjacent lot so that the parking becomes accessible.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, guys. Let's all vote. Miguel,
Aye.
Noel,
I
Christian, Harry, aye.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys. Well done. Good luck.
Or you can leave that over there if someone wants to sign it.
All right, I'm bringing. All right, we got Mr. Garrity back.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the courtesy. It's very much appreciated. And Bob, thank you. After reviewing this with the client and the architect, I think the C2 zone is appropriate. There is no change in the footprint. It is, however, group quarters based on the definition and the types of uses. They're not private kitchens. They're group kitchen, essentially. So it's an entirely appropriate use for the C2 zone. So it would be appreciated if the recommendation was that this be a C2 zone, which would therefore then not require a special use permit in order to legalize the use. The same residents that are there now, which are 50, are going to be there in the future. It's no change in the number of residents. It's just a significant rehabilitation of it. And I will say that this is transitional use. It's not a shelter. The average stay is 1 year, so it's housing, not a shelter. It's sober housing and for veterans. So believe the C2 would be the appropriate designation for this particular use.
Well done, Bob.
Yeah, and certainly we wouldn't object to that, given that there's C2 directly adjacent to it. And we would amend our recommendation accordingly.
So, did we do the stack works?
No, not
I
yet.
believe so, no. No. Yeah, and Commissioners, just based on the foregoing discussion, we would recommend that this area be, the lots be rezoned to C2, from R3 to C2, as it would be in conformance with the existing uses.
So moved.
Second.
Wait, I'd like to
Public
hear from
testimony.
Miguel. What?
We need to open it to public
Public comment.
testimony,
Yeah.
public comment first.
I do.
I don't see any hands online. I don't see any hands in the room.
Okay, so let's move on to our quick deliberation.
I mean, I think well, I don't think, I agree with the amended recommendation. It stays the same type of use, same transitional use, in the same amount of units, so it doesn't affect the neighborhood any different. It actually improves it by rehabbing the units in the building, so.
Also, I'm glad we made the decision instead of leaving it up to the city council. God knows how long that would take. Noel, you have any comment? You look,
No comment.
Chris?
So there's already a motion on the table, so.
Sure. You've made the motion?
No, Chris made the
Chris made the
motion and
motion,
Noel
I
already
seconded
said,
Okay,
so we can act on that.
so let's have a vote then quickly. Miguel?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
Christian? Aye. Harry? Aye.
Thank you very much, and appreciate the input very much. Thank you.
Okay, we're on number 4, which is our last referral, 3531, 475 to 485 Broadway. Commissioner John McGarry will present.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrity on behalf of the applicant.
Excuse us, John.
Wait, John.
John, let's have Choyan introduce it.
Sorry about that.
Sure, and Commissioners, you're probably familiar with this by now. This is a development consisting of 3 lots that's occupied by a social club / cultural facility that offers incidental entertainment, which is permitted by right and consists of unamplified music. The applicant is requesting to rezone this lot from the development from RP to C3 in order to allow for what's known as live entertainment as an ancillary use, which would allow for an enhanced form of entertainment that would include amplified music, DJs, dancing, and performances. And I think the applicant can tell us more about their request.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrity on behalf of the applicant, the Lower American Club. I'm half Italian, by the way, although my last name doesn't reflect it. I don't know why I get all the tough ones tonight, but I have. So the intent here of the Italo American Club is to be able to have a Sinatra type singer provide entertainment out in the patio area of the club. And the thought would be to do that would be to change it from RP to a C3 use. We have since determined that is not really an appropriate way to achieve the goal of having the entertainment as an ancillary use. So I know the staff report has suggested an alternative action here with respect to how to accomplish this goal. And I would ask that Trajan has indicated in his staff report, and I indicate that the recommendation be in accordance with the staff report.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to just provide a little bit of context here. We've had a lot of debate in the city about the proper location and the proper type of entertainment. And the current rules date back more than a decade now to a time when the licensing board and the zoning board were having a lot of trouble policing venues that were providing entertainment. It used to be that any facility within a commercial zone could get approval for entertainment by special use permit and thereby receive an entertainment license. And what was happening was developers were representing to the zoning board that what they were going to provide was sort of background music. They would get their special use permit, they would get their license, and then they would essentially turn into a full-blown nightclub. So the way the ordinance was written was in such a way that essentially banned live entertainment from commercial zones, amplified live entertainment from commercial zones, and created a use described as incidental entertainment. And incidental entertainment is allowed not only in commercial zones, but it's allowed at any bar or restaurant. And it's defined as music, live music played by no more than 3 people and unamplified, where there's no dancing and no strobe lights and things like that allowed. Although incidental entertainment could also include music softly played over a sound system that's permanently installed within the venue. The point of that was to say, kind of call the bluff of all the folks that said they were providing incidental entertainment. The next level up from that we call live entertainment ancillary use, which is allows for amplified entertainment, allows for things like cover charge and what you might expect, entertainment you might expect to see, you know, in a restaurant, but a little bit more intensive. A level up from that we call nightclub, where the only thing happening on the site is music and dancing and drinking, where you don't even have to have a principal use that this is sort of ancillary to. We know that the definition of incidental, we believe the definition of incidental entertainment is very restrictive. This would prohibit what we often see in bars and restaurants, which might be a small live group in the corner with sound reinforcement. Even if it's someone singing into a microphone with a speaker, that would be prohibited. But we feel that that's not appropriate. So we feel that it's time to reevaluate this idea of incidental entertainment. I've spoken with Councilwoman Miller, who represents this area of Broadway where the Italo American Club is. She's supportive of their ability to have amplified music. She also indicated to me that she would be supportive of having a discussion about revising the regulations for incidental entertainment. So rather than rezone this C3, which is wholly inappropriate for Broadway, C3 allows for buildings set back deep in parking lots. It allows for auto uses, muffler shops, things like that. There's no C3 anywhere near here. So that really would not be appropriate. We think that revising the definition of incidental entertainment would be better. And we think that it should be somewhere along the lines of striking the language about amplification, but keeping in the language about noise. I can actually pull it up right now. We say, I'm just going to read it, and I'm going to suggest to you how it might be restructured. Incidental entertainment is described as background music provided at a bar or restaurant, limited to the following formats: live music performance limited to not more than a maximum of 3 acoustic instruments, which shall not be amplified by any means, electronic or otherwise. Or B, pre-recorded music played from a pre-selected playlist over the permanently installed sound system. If a bar or restaurant includes incidental entertainment, it cannot charge a cover charge, shall not allow dancing by patrons of the establishment, cannot employ flashing laser or strobe lights, and the maximum volume, irrespective of the format, is limited solely to the boundaries of the premises at all times. We like the last phrase. We don't mind the phrase about pre-recorded music from the pre-selected playlist over a permanently installed sound system. I think that's kind of intended to sort of discourage DJs. I would lump DJs in with live instrumental performance. So I think the key is the volume at the boundaries of the property. And within that, other than that, I'm not sure how much. I mean, do we want to say no dancing?
So I'm happy because I picked up on that too, and I had a recent conversation. It's a little outside of our bounds, so it'll be more on a board of license, but that is one of the reasons that people go for different licenses, because they're, well, we can't have a couple dancing when their song comes on or whatever. So if we can find a way to take that piece out of it, I think that would allow for more proper use, or more of the properly intended use of how it was written. Because I think what I like what we're doing here is we're looking at the loopholes that have been exposed and used in the past, and if we could find a way to make sure that the intended use of what was written and what the applicants are looking for can be on the same page, I think this would be good.
If you're gonna have Sinatra playing at the Italo American Club, no one can dance. That seems very unnatural. And I think in a lot of places where there is incidental entertainment, there's not a lot of room for dancing. So I don't think it's a huge problem that dances are just gonna break out everywhere. Dance battles in the streets. And don't worry about that.
It's hard to know what a dance is anyway. Body just vibrating.
I think if I remember correctly, when we were discussing this earlier, part of the reason for putting that in was because you don't know when it's a few people dancing and when that becomes into some, dancing into something that you see at like a nightclub.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of difficult to see where you cross that.
Right.
It could limit fighting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's change the dancing to fighting. No fighting.
no, yeah.
No fighting, so just dance.
I mean, I in a restaurant, especially like at Maria's Casino, which is where this is, I mean, unless you moved all of the tables, or I think they even have different grades of flooring, it can't become a club, right? But if there's a way to tie it to the use, meaning that it's a restaurant, there's tables and everything. If people dance between the two tables, you can only have 2 people dancing there anyways. I think the problem comes in when people just take everything out of the way and then they make it into a nice open space. So I don't know if there's a way to tie in the use by what they have in there to limit another type of use. And this, just so we know too, this change obviously is for more than just the building. It's I think 3 lots, right? So it's the outdoor area as well. So I think that might be one of the fears too, is if you have amplified music outside, how that affects everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that certainly could be an issue. And I think incidental entertainment would apply whether you're doing it inside or outside. So even if they wanted to do something like that inside, they'd have a problem. So I don't know if, I don't
So
know.
what would the language be then?
Well, I would certainly, you know, I would say that you'd want to keep in the phrase background music provided at a bar or restaurant. I don't know that you want to keep in the phrase limiting it to particular formats. It's
Should be limited in the file.
you could say something like that it's background music provided at a bar or restaurant that could be either played over a sound system or played by live musicians, but definitely keep in this language about the maximum volume. And if you want, I mean, if you want to truly make it incidental, you know, maybe cover charge should stay in.
Laser and strobe lights.
I mean, you know, maybe prohibit laser strobe lights and cover charge. But you know, I would suggest being kind of agnostic about dancing. I mean,
You're not gonna dance anyway, so.
if someone wants to like get a beer and dance back to the table, or they're going to be, you know, shut down.
But isn't Chris right? The issue is volume? I mean,
Yes,
and so
that should stay in for
the
sure.
premises is the building itself, it's not the parking lot?
No, it's the property. It's the property. So, you know, if you're outside, it shouldn't be loud enough that you're hearing it,
Yeah,
you know,
basically
across the street.
the way I'm thinking of it is when the neighbor is ready to go to bed, they should be able to go to bed. If you're still being loud, then they can call the police and the police can say, it's on the property line, I can hear the music, you have to turn it down, turn it off.
So what about limiting time?
Well, that's a good question. Another thing we talked about in this debate is whether, if we wanted to kind of open this up, do we say that, you know, entertainment is limited to certain periods of time? We had thought of that more for this other category of live entertainment, ancillary use. One which is not allowed in the C zones. We were suggesting maybe it should be allowed in the C zones, but that it have to stop at, say, 10 on the weekdays and 11 on the weekends, so that it's not like the nightclub where people go out at 10 or 11. So I mean, that's certainly an option. Incidental entertainment, I would argue, is supposed to be background music. So I don't know that you'd want to impose time limits on that. Although the one thing about this, we may already have limitations on outdoor use for this particular one because it's in a residential zone. It's in the residential professional district.
Parking lot's so huge, I think you have to limit that. Maybe we should say, you can go in and get earbuds.
Well, so the question I have said at the end of the discussion in the first paragraph, the zone change is being requested to allow for live entertainment, ancillary use, which would allow for enhanced entertainment that would include amplified music, DJs, dancing, and performances.
Yeah,
That's what they want to do.
So I think what we heard Mr. Garrity say is that an expanded definition of incidental entertainment to allow for amplified music,
right,
would satisfy his client without needing a zone
All the
change
other
that would
things.
allow all that.
exactly.
Because if I read that, then I think, well, they're probably want to do weddings and in big parties or something.
Yeah, this would not. this
Not
would
allow
do
for that, like a venue for events,
Yeah,
you know. That's what,
so yeah, we're recommending, our recommendation is not to allow.
Not to allow that.
But instead to modify the definition of incidental entertainment to allow for a certain degree of amplification.
So it'll be a specific modification just for this application. We
No,
can't-
that would be, if the recommendation is to change the definition of incidental entertainment,
To the
it
city
would
council.
apply to any bar or restaurant that's legally established citywide.
We're just making the recommendations. They're gonna
Right.
actually. are gonna use it.
Yeah.
Right, so we're not, so we wouldn't be acting on this action, but we'll just be just send a recommendation for the ordinance committee.
Yeah, so the recommendation, I think the way we wrote it is that you're not recommending in favor of this rezoning, but instead recommending that the committee consider revisions to the definition of incidental entertainment.
Correct.
that's what the recommendation.
And some, can we put in conditions like volume and timing of?
You could say that the council should consider retaining language about volume, consider time limitations, and remove restrictions on amplification, dancing, and the number of performers.
You can't even have a barbershop quartet.
That's right. We missed that in harmony.
Keeping the sound to the premises.
That would retain, we would retain that. Our recommendation is that should
Change
be
the language around volume. Change the language around.
So, or we can make it inviting. If it's inside, it can be until 11 o'clock at night, but if it's outside, it has to be 10. You know, I mean, I know where I live, that the students will have a party. And, you know, when it's inside, but then when they come outside, boy, we know it. I think the premises being the whole property, including the parking lot, especially like this one, is enormous. I mean, it's huge. So I'd certainly like to, and make it inviting. Say, so if you were gonna have a party, have it inside, you're gonna have it inside until 10, outside until 10. After 10, you gotta go inside. Something the cops can actually clearly enforce.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of if it's outside, and putting the time on it, but inside, if you're open at midnight, you can.
Yeah.
keep it open.
Outside, it's like the same way. If you want to do it inside, that's one thing. Outside, it's a different rule.
This recommendation, or keep that as part of the larger discussion we're discussing.
Well, I thought we were going to build on what Miguel suggested earlier, that we don't just leave it all up to the council, give them some of our wisdom and experience and suspicion.
So what
Wait,
zoning?
Can I make I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna go to another meeting, but I'm gonna take it on my cell phone. I'm sorry, I have to go to another meeting. So my
Okay,
leaving.
John, we see that you're logged in with your cell phone.
Thank you. I don't mean to be rude. I just have to make another meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, let me just ask, the incidental entertainment is an ordinance that applies to what zonings? What zoning?
It applies
any-
to every zone.
That's right, okay.
It simply applies to restaurants and bars. So if those happen to be in commercial zones or residential zones. It's the
Right,
same.
but every restaurant, bar can.
Yes.
So the reason I bring that up, because I'm not sure what kind of doors we might be opening with this. Because you don't have, incidental entertainment does not require a license for each event. That means they can do this at any time.
That's.
So there's no oversight. Once this is on paper, any club or bar can then start acting with this type of ordinance and uses this. Yeah, I'm very uncomfortable with it. I just,
So,
'Cause
let's
every-
look at the definition, all we would be taking out is the number of people in the band, so. You have a fourth person, if you have a three-piece band and a singer, that's fine. The amplified by any means, we're just gonna say that amplification is okay, but a maximum volume, irrespective of format, is limited solely to the boundaries of the premises of the all time. So if you're so loud that your neighbors can hear you, then you're within the cops can easily observe that and stop it.
and I could read the same thing, but and we all know that we've heard testimony from neighbors who complain that the noise encroaches their property. And when they call the cops, or the cop can't do anything because it's all relative of what they can hear. So that's not really that loud, but they're like, we have things falling off the walls at our home. It's definitely too loud. We can't sleep. There's a lot of conversation about noise being a health issue. And with so many establishments being near or in residential areas, I think we're allowing too much leeway that I wouldn't want to propose anything for at this moment. And I understand what they're trying to accomplish, and it's not about this particular project, but just in terms of making a blanket change to the ordinance, and I've never seen this go this, like, we're kind of a lot of stuff comes up with the board of license and stuff that they do. And I've never seen that come to us, but I think this is an opportunity to have a deeper conversation and definitely not make this type of move or recommendation to the city council.
In the club right now, is there any entertainment? I've been there once.
I don't know. I think they may be providing incidental entertainment, and maybe they have been doing some amplification, but it's been stopped.
Also, they've been
I
told
think
them what.
that's possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, this like the dancing, I say take that right out. I mean, if you want to dance to a little clock radio, then you can dance to it. It's not affecting anything outside the club. It's more of how it affects the neighbors, and also can a establishment change the nature of the business under the guise of this. And this is, yeah.
So I think the question here is, what do we do with the recommendation? So do you want to just make a recommendation that the council should amend the definition of incidental entertainment and leave this up to them? And just say, hey, this is an issue that should be handled through your legislative process?
Except really one of our main directives is to try to prevent the neighborhoods from being negatively affected, to mitigate expansion and encroachment. That's why, I mean, I would find it impossible to be in favor of doing anything that reduced amplification. For me, that's the killer. That's when you can just ratchet your radio up, your whatever the hell it is, up to 10 or 12 and blow everybody out. you're all gonna have a good time. So that's hard for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but I don't think the council is interested in that either, right? Like,
I don't
the
know
city
if the
council is
council,
gonna have the same.
but we might put a couple of suggestions that at least show
And
that we've got some thought and, you know,
That's the question I was having
Yeah.
like right now.
I know.
What are you saying? That
You
you're
can-
gonna,
you
you're
can-
gonna vote against this recommendation at
Yeah.
all?
Well, this was the staff that came up with an alternative solution. The ordinance wasn't even up for discussion. So we can look at this particular application and see if there's something else that can be done to satisfy their request. But the ordinance opens it up to a lot more uses throughout the city. And I've been at those meetings, I've heard testimony here and other meetings where the intention when it was written might have been X, but the outcomes of that and the impact were very different. And we have to be very, very careful of what we might be opening up, especially since we're just doing this in this meeting. We haven't done a lot of research with this. I wouldn't want to make a recommendation to change this ordinance unless it's something very specific, like the dancing, like, yeah, we could take that out. I don't have a problem with that. The amplification, that's too narrow, unless you said amplification to X decibel, and I don't even know what a decibel is, so I can't even make that recommendation.
So if the entertainment is happening indoor, right, I mean, isn't it private property, you do kind of whatever you want?
No, we regulate that as a land use. So, we're, and not only is it regulated by zoning, it also has to be licensed.
Right, so, but I mean, we're talking about noise and sound going beyond the, I mean, we were talking about this with Moses Brown the other day, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
It's when the noise gets beyond the fence, right? So we
Right.
need to plant more trees or it's like, I live across the street from noise.
and I think that's like,
There's not much regulation you can do.
that's a great example. I mean, I can't imagine anyone at Moses Brown wanting to blow the neighbors out, but over time, little by little, something happens. Someone decides that it's okay to have a Shakespearean play with cannons going off, and the next thing you know, it's really impinged upon the neighborhood. I'm inclined to try to I think it's an opportunity for us to really think about this and say, is something enforceable? It's one thing to say we're not going to have any outside music, because at least that's enforceable. I mean, if it is outside, then it's a violation and the cops can close it.
But I kind of want to push back here because I think now it's swung back in the other direction. But too much for me. It's like you live in a city because these things are there. Right? You move to Broadway, the Broadway neighborhood, because you want to go to Knicks in the morning. You want to eat at you want these things, right? So you deal with parking, people out late in front of the neighborhood, and all that other stuff. Because you live in a desirable, that's what makes the neighborhood desirable. So if we're just going to say, hey, places want to have a fourth musician, but we're not going to have that because it's a slippery slope. There are also neighbors that live near Moses Brown that have a tremendous relationship with Moses Brown and don't have to deal with their so there are. So I mean, I don't know if we can say, hey, everybody that complains, we should only build legislation so that we never have any complaints. Well, that will never happen.
Right, that's right. That'll never happen. But I mean, what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying, but we're actually changing the neighborhood. I mean, we're saying, okay, you can have signage with lighting and you can have outside performances, and that is changing, and the same is happening here. No, I think it's, I agree with you. The city, you have to you learn to live with other people's interests and desires and so forth. That is part of the game. But I can't really say, I could never, I just can't say, amplification is okay. I just don't think for this kind of venue, I just can't.
So for this, when they say an incidental entertainment, I mean, I think John's still on the phone. How often is this? Because the other option is doing special permits, right? Where they would have to ask for a permit to do an event. So if they're doing it once a month, it just means going up to the board once a month. Is this something that's going to happen every week? I mean, do we know?
You know,
Right, but I'm saying for their intended use.
yeah, that's a very good question. I don't think it's that often, and it's mostly in the summertime. So it's not all that much, actually.
So John, why wouldn't you just request the special permits for the events if it's not that often as an option?
So I don't think it's in the zone that a lot,
Oh, because of
It's not available.
not available. Exactly.
And again, you do have amplification when you play the music over your speakers. So you're using electronic music, amplified electronically through a speaker, as long as it's on your Spotify playlist. But if my Frank Sinatra impersonator comes in, he can only come in with 2 other band members, and they have to play a cue stick, and I have to sing a cappella, like with no microphone. I mean, I have to sing with a microphone. So that's, to me, is like, we're not recommending that they get to like bring in the biggest speaker in the world. We're saying, we can even say, hey, you have, they can amplify through the pre-existing music system. So when they come in and use the microphone, it has to connect to the speakers that already exist in the restaurant. You can't have other speakers.
Well, it has that already, right? Because it has to be connected. If it's the permanent system, they can go ahead and use that.
Well, they can't do that now.
No,
You can't sing on a microphone on that thing, according to the current rule.
You couldn't use this sound system.
I can't do this right here. I couldn't do this in the Italo American Club. I can't talk on this microphone.
Well, if you're talking, it's not entertainment.
I can't do this.
Spoken word is something, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you can do spoken word, but if you harmonize in any way, well, you get shut down.
Well, you couldn't do spoken word because someone might say that's entertainment.
Yeah, so that's what I like. When somebody starts to harmonize, that is the line where the police may be involved.
And I'm not sure if this is
I don't think
really before us tonight, which is to change the definition of entertainment tonight. And I think that this is indicative of the fact that this is part of a larger discussion that should happen before the council. Either the council sends a recommendation to us, and we can do it there, because that's not part of the petition right now.
Yeah, and I think
feel it's
they're
something
better
that we should
equipped.
discuss.
They would be better equipped to do this. It's more public and maybe I think Councilwoman Miller and whoever the next leadership will be is going to be they'll be interested in getting input from the community and from the business owners. And I have confidence that the council will do the right thing. I mean, some people I wish were on the council, but we can't have everything. But I mean, that's what I was trying to say a couple minutes ago. And it's not because the Celtics openers tonight, but what I'm saying is we could just do what they're saying, just say, hey, we're not suggesting to make a zone change. You guys need to look at this and you guys handle it. Or the other option is saying that and then saying, but we'd like you to retain this language, say this specific thing or whatever. But we could just leave it open and say, hey, you know what, City Council, you guys have that discussion.
Yeah, and this body does have a referral review subcommittee where it could be discussed. So,
And that might be a bit, because also I think for all of us, it'd be nice to be able to have this as an open item where people may be aware and can actually provide testimony and ideas around this, you know, or send a letter stating those facts. So,
Amplification of the same thing. No, what I'm saying is, if I'm speaking, if I'm reading the lyrics of a song in my regular voice, I can use a microphone. But if I'm singing the song, I can't use the microphone. According to the current thing, well, I have a beautiful.
well, that can be discussed in detail when, you know, it comes back to us or the council decides stuff.
Yeah, and to me, like, that's the thing that struck me with the language. It's just, it's kind of ridiculous. Like,
no, it's not good language. I agree with.
yeah, it's like I can have my Spotify playlist, but if I have a DJ in there, that somehow, oh my goodness, it's crazy. It's gonna get out of hand. So I also, and I am sensitive. I go to 148 a lot. It's one of my favorite places to go, and we're right in the middle of a neighborhood, and I couldn't not live next door to there because there've been plenty of nights when I've been in there, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe how these people are, you know, I'm having a great time, but if I live next door, I want to go to sleep, and it's pretty loud out there. So I get it. Yeah, I understand, and I don't. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I want to happen. But I'd like to suggest that they look at this definition because I don't like the definition as is. So I want to make this the recommendation that they take the time to look at this. Like you said, I'm not 100% comfortable that we put together good language here tonight. So I think that we should just send it like it is.
Yeah, I think we've just exposed how incredibly complicated it gets after what.
So I'd like to
make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the CPC should not, recommend to the council that we should not take any action on the zone change. And rather that we suggest that the council work to amend the definition of incidental entertainment. And I'll put a period there. I'm not gonna say moderately amplified.
And in that case, there might be a new ordinance that comes back.
Yeah. So I'd say just to amend the definition of incidental entertainment and explore that.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Noel. All right, let's have a vote.
So discussion before voting. So, and I think this is what Bob was alluding to. Since we did not deny it, we took no action. This stays basically with, it allows that possibility for it to come back with a different request. Okay, so that said.
You're a lawyer.
No, you definitely want to hire me, but that said, so aye.
Double aye. Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Leaves us a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. We have a second.
Second.
From Chris with the great voice. Thank you.